Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to Sci-Finatics. Well, today we're talking about episode 7 of season 3 of the Orville, entitled From Unknown Graves. This was an episode where we kind of got a bit more in-depth insight into the history of the Kaylon and how they sort of started off as subservient kind of domestic droids and then kind of basically turned into biological killing machines. On top of this, we also got the Genesea, the matriarchal society that is looking to potentially join the Union, but there's a few stumbling blocks in terms of their perception of males. It made for some interesting humour in this episode and some interesting moments as well. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to Sci-Finatics yet, please don't forget to do so. Please click on that big red button to stay up to date and current with all the latest sci-fi TV news on YouTube. So let's get into today's breakdown of the latest episode of Orville, episode 7, season 3. Generally, episodes tend to kind of have like an A story and a B story going on, but this episode kind of had an A, a B, a C, and a D story going on, because not only did we get the story, the history and the backstory of the Kaylon, and we also got the negotiations with the Genesea, that matriarchal society trying to join the Union. We also got Lamar and Keyali's very, very physical relationship dramas and how that was playing out and working for them, which was kind of a bit awkward. And we also had Isaac and Claire's relationship issues to do with their relationship and basically the pondering of the question, if Isaac could have emotions, would he choose to have them? And how would that work? So there's quite a lot of story threads going on in this episode. I thought the history of the Kaylon in this regard was quite interesting. The fact that they started off as sort of subservient, domesticated droids that were there to come and do your cooking and your cleaning in your home. Kind of reminded me a little bit of the movie Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams, who started off as an android and sort of ended up as a sort of sentient being or whatever by the end of the movie. But I guess they sort of started out like a C-3PO kind of thing, where they were just sort of, you know, droids to kind of help out, kind of do a little bit of domestic work and everything, helping the family. And they kind of got jack of that pretty quickly when they were basically, you know, bossed around and bullied and, you know, treated as second-class citizens. And that ultimately led to an uprising, eradicated all biological life from the planet. I found it interesting that they chose to make the makeup of the biological life forms that invented the Kaylon sort of a little bit evil looking. I think the whole grey alien kind of look with the grey skin sort of, you know, but the red eyes kind of made them seem like sort of a hostile species. So I guess that was intentional. And I think it was a good creative choice, because we don't want to feel too much pity for these guys who ended up getting wiped out because they sort of did the wrong thing to begin with. Seems like watching the two kids press the deactivation device or whatever and continually knocking K1 down, and the master of the house using it to kind of torture and punish K1. You can kind of see, okay, we kind of get it now as to why these guys have got such a grudge against biologicals, because they were severely put into slavery, they were mistreated, they were bullied, they were, you know, in some ways tortured as well. So after this episode, I guess we can all kind of see a little bit of understanding as to what the Kaylon probably went through. But by the other token, we also get to see Timus's reaction to this and how he is completely aware of what his people have done and how it's abhorrent, and the fact that just because the biologicals that invented the Kaylon, you shouldn't paint everybody with the same brush. And he could kind of see that, you know, everybody's different. Everybody's got different points of view and different ways of tackling things, and that we shouldn't all be punished for the sins of, you know, one or two people or one particular race. I think we had some really good humorous moments in this episode, particularly with Tala and John with their lovemaking. There's a bit too much strength, I think, there from Tala's behalf or whatever. She doesn't know when to hold back, and obviously John ended up with broken bones, broken hips, broken arms, you name it. But they kind of really wanted to be together, and, you know, they sort of tried to persevere through the differences in their physiology. It was never going to kind of work, I guess, just because of the difference in strength between the two species. And there were some really, you know, cute moments. Obviously, Lamar trying to cover it up in sickbay when Claire was just, saying, how are you getting all these injuries all the time? And he kind of kept lying about his fitness routine and everything. And that last shot, I think, when they're both kind of crying and they realise the relationship has to come to an end because it just can't work physically, and the camera zooms out and we see Poor, poor old Lamar, beaten to an absolute pulp. He's got, bashed in eyes and he spits his teeth out. It was a sad moment, but also quite a funny moment as well, I think. It's that aspect of humour, I think, like someone slipping on a banana peel. There's, a certain degree of hilarity that comes with seeing somebody kind of, unintentionally hurt, I guess. So I really enjoyed those little moments between these two in this episode. The other main relationship angle we had in this episode was all the stuff to do with Claire and Isaac. This kind of storyline's been going on a while with these two, and it's sort of been on again, off again a little bit. We kind of came to the episode in this, which is sort of like, I guess, it's sort of a bit like a rip-off of Data's journey in Next Generation, the android who, in Data's case, wanted to have emotions and wanted to be more human. But in Isaac's case, he's the android that just doesn't feel any need, that he should need to have emotions. He feels he's completely fine as it is. He's got no impetus to change, and that's just the way he is. So it was sort of a bit Data-esque, I guess, in his story, just a sort of a slight variation on that theme in terms of his reasonings and wants to do so. I was thinking after last week's episode with the time travel element or whatever, whether we might end up seeing Isaac using his hollow emitter a little bit more to project his human version of himself. So I thought it was good to continue that element of storytelling. There's obviously only so much emotion you can kind of generate wearing the whole Kaylon suit, so I guess Mark Jackson has a possibility of stretching his acting legs a little bit more when Isaac's using the hollow emitter. And I think it played out very well in this episode in the terms of Isaac getting the emotions. Obviously, we're able to get much more emotion and feeling out of Isaac as a character when he's in kind of human form, I suppose. And this obviously played really nicely onto the whole change of programming to incorporate the emotions in his system. And I kind of knew it was doomed from the start. I knew this isn't going to stick. I think this is going to be a very short-term prospect for Isaac. And sure enough, the programming didn't take because Isaac was kind of like a Mark II android or whatever that had been built by the Kaylon, whereas Timus, the one they found on the planet, he was one of the original ones that had been built by humans, so it had different programming and different neural net or whatever you want to call it, that meant that Isaac kind of ultimately wasn't compatible for the emotional programming to stick. Or it could have stuck, but the price for it to stick would be too high. I mean, yes, Claire was given the option to completely format Isaac altogether, start from scratch, wipe his entire lifespan of memories and start from the beginning in order to do so. But yeah, I mean, a bit too high a price to pay, I guess. And, I think it would have come across very selfish, I think, if Claire had have gone down that road. And I think it's a sadder love story between these two now because, it's sort of the love that could have been but can't happen because then it would, Isaac would be wiped and he would be starting again and he wouldn't be Isaac anymore. You sort of can't go down that road, I suppose. I think it was a really nice sort of telling of their story. I think it was good that we got at least one episode where there was that moment where they had that connection between the two. Isaac had the emotions, he had all the feelings and everything. Pity that he couldn't remember them after the upgrade went wrong and it sort of, I guess, reset and all of those emotional feelings got erased from his system. But I guess for us as an audience, I guess it was a glimpse at the life they could have had. Much like John and Tala, where they can't have a relationship because of her immense strength. Well, I guess the same goes for Isaac and Claire. They can't have a relationship because, Isaac can't feel emotions and, that's something that Claire needs to have that in her life. So there were some, quite sweet relationship moments in this episode, not to mention the history between Ed and Kelly and having to use that as a kind of not a bargaining chip with the Genesea, but also a bit more of a kind of learn a bit more about our backstory as humans and, the differences between, men and women and all that sort of thing. I think the story we got with the Genesea and learning about their matriarchal society, it's like the opposite of the Mocklins. Rather than the patriarchal society, these guys are the matriarchal society. So trying to get them to join the union or whatever is going to be obviously a tough ask. And I did enjoy the kind of role swap dynamic we had going on in this episode, with all of the females taking over the command roles, delegating the males to kind of subservient tasks. And I think there's some great humour in this episode, you know, seeing Gordon and Ed struggle with all of the luggage from the shuttle, from the Genesea, and trying to drag that through the corridors of the ship, and, you know, squeezing through doorways and stuff. I think that was really funny stuff. I really enjoyed that aspect of this episode. I think there was some great humorous moments in this episode because of that. And also trying to kind of tiptoe around the whole dynamics of, you know, male-female dominance and everything. And we had the dinner party going on, and then we had, you know, the female Genesea trying to kind of drag Ed off to the bedroom, and that dynamic, and you know, Gordon kind of saying, I'll do it, you know. he was putting his hand up for it. There's an interesting story to be told here, because obviously we've had plenty of episodes with the Mocklans and dealing with female rights and everything on a male-driven planet, and we kind of got to see the other side of the coin in this episode with the Genesea, in terms of them being, you know, a pro-female, anti-male kind of society. The other element in this episode I thought was quite a nice conclusion to the whole story regarding the Kaylon is the fact that I think Charlie, who had a bitter resentment of all Kaylon because of her friend who was killed in the battle against Earth, and she had just a hatred for all Kaylon, I think she kind of realised, you know, in obviously her dealings with Isaac, and also, you know, seeing Timus as well and having him apologise to her for all of the, you know, sins of the Kaylon. I guess she realised that not all Kaylon are bad, and you know, that's something that Timus and Isaac have come to learn, that, you know, you can't just punish an entire race or, you know, species for the bad treatment of just you know, a handful, because that's what the Kaylon, you know, have been doing to biologicals. They're trying to wipe out all biologicals because they see them all as bad. The same way as, you know, Charlie seems all Kaylon as bad. There's, you know, seems to be no grey area, but it's good to see that them sort of softening on there. And I think Charlie is certainly starting to see things from a different perspective when it comes to, you know, Kaylon, particularly ones like Timus and Isaac. All in all, I thought this was an enjoyable episode. I think we had some very interesting social issues raised in terms of the dynamics between men and women, and the patriarchal society differences and stuff between the, you know, the Genesea, and talking about the Mocklans and all that sort of thing. And we had some good relationship stuff going on with, you know, Tala and John and Claire and Isaac. There was a broad number of kind of themes addressed this week's episode. The episode pacing was okay. I didn't kind of look at my watch or think this is an overly long episode. I think it kind of seemed to play out in a, you know, reasonable amount of time. I know the Orville episodes are quite long. They're, you know, almost feature length. So it's, you know, it's good to see that they can, you know, hold our attention without getting any kind of flat spots or flabby spots or whatever in that running time. So I think that's been handled quite well in the last few episodes. But guys, let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know in the comments section. Leave a message there and let me know your impressions and thoughts about this episode, and also generally how you're enjoying the season of the Orville so far. As always, guys, please leave a super thanks if you're able to. It really helps the channel out. Much appreciated. Always like and comment, because that helps too. And subscribe if you haven't already done so. And check out my merch in the merch store, where you can pick up, you know, some cool, you know, sci-fi and Star Trek themed t-shirts and hoodies and mugs and caps and all that sort of stuff for great bargain prices. There's always a sale going on, so make sure you check that out. Link is in the description. And I'll catch you guys very soon for my next video. I'll see you soon.